Hey, what's up guys, it's WiseGuyVito here, and today I have another tier list video for you guys, and this one will be on turrets and mines, kind of like the more defensive placement turret type of stratagems, and which ones are really good and which ones are not so great. As always, like, share, and subscribe. I've been appreciating all the support you guys have been giving me. And let's get straight into the video. So before we start, let's go over the tiers real quick. S tier, these would be considered, in my opinion, basically like the meta picks at level 10 difficulties. If you want to run level 10 difficulties with great efficiency, then these are the stratagems that you want to be running. A tier is above average. There might be like one glaring issue, you know, that's kind of keeping it out of this S tier type of rank. But they're still good at level 10. You just know that there might be like maybe one drawback, one glaring drawback with it that you might lose some efficiency out on when running this stratagem at level 10. B tier is average. You know, it's neither good nor bad. It might be kind of situational, but for the most part, you can still kind of run these at level 10. You just know that it's super situational, and that, you know, it's kind of like a, you know, it can excel definitely at some situations, but for the most part, it has an average performance. C tier is below average. Would definitely like to see some buffs to this, maybe like 1 or 2 buffs, and then it'd kind of be like an A or S tier ranking. And then D tier is the dookie tier. This is the bad tier. This is a bad stratagem. I would not advise you running the stratagem at level 10 unless, you know, like there's some serious reworks or buffs to this stratagem. So with that out of the way and the explanations are over with, let's get straight into the video. So the anti-tank mines, I do think that these are very good in some instances, definitely on defense missions, but the overall mission types in the game that are like, you know, like the 40-minute long missions, or even like the blitz missions, I really don't think these things are quite too good. Because they're kind of situational. It kind of all depends on where the enemy is kind of walking at. Also, these things can kill hulks, striders, and also tanks. So again, it's very situational on what enemies that you run into. But on defense missions, I really do think that these are really good. In my opinion, on defense missions, it would definitely be like a high A, maybe leading into S tier, right? But, you know, for the time being, though, overall and all the other mission types, I'm going to put it like in a high B type of situation. I do think that these are very good. You know, like for the most part, on defense missions, but any other mission types, I would have to put it kind of like in an average type of performance tier. This would be the anti-tank placement that you can kind of like sit in, and with a big cannon, you can kind of snipe with great power. And you can kill fabricators with this. You can kill striders from far away from this. You can kind of wipe out whole patrols with this as well. I actually do think that this is an S tier one, in my opinion. I don't think it's like on the tip top of S tier though. I just feel like it's just a solid, really good stratagem. Just kind of just like if you could find a hill, and of course like it's really dependent on like what map that you play on. But if you can find kind of like a nice perchable area, then I really do think that this really does shine, right? It is very dependent on kind of like your placement. All of these stratagems are basically placement dependent, right? You can throw down like one of the best turrets, mines, you know, placements in the entire game, you know, down anywhere, right? But it depends on where you place it is how much value that you get out of it, right? So in my opinion, if you have really good placement with this, you're going to get very solid results with it. So that's why I'm putting it in S tier. The Autocannon, do you think this is probably like the best stratagem or turret stratagem in the game right now, just because of its destructive power. It just handles enemies very well on all factions in the game, especially on the Automaton front, because it handles Devastators very well, Berserkers, tanks, Hulks, you know, Striders. It just handles them all, and that's why I think that it's a really good pick for level 10 difficulties. The EMS mortar, I do think this is an S tier 1 as well. It doesn't kill your teammates, which is good. You know, like all mortars kind of have that tendency of killing your teammates, especially like the regular mortar, with its destructive power. But what this one does is that it doesn't kill your teammates, but it gives you amazing CC. It can be used on defense missions. This is kind of like a must pick for defense missions. I think all mortars are kind of like a must pick for defense missions. But even if you run this on like blitz missions or even like the 40-minute long missions on level 10 difficulty, I really do find these to be really, really good, especially on bot drops. You can kind of just throw this down, stay close to it, CC everything around you, and then you can kind of just pick off things one by one. So that's why I'm putting it in the S tier rank. The flame turret. Flame turret's kind of like a weird one for me. I feel like that is better on Terminids overall. It has very short range. Whenever it dies, it explodes, which is nice. But to me, this feels like a very C-tier, below-average performance type of turret on the Automaton faction. This might not be necessarily an Automaton turret, in my opinion. It's not particularly bad against them. It's just you have a bunch of ranged enemies. You have rocket devastators that can rocket you from very far away. You got devastators that can laser beam you still. You got turrets that can shoot this pretty effectively, right? This thing just doesn't really have the capability of handling ranged targets. Now, up close, it is pretty good. I feel like that if you're going up against a map seed of Berserkers, for example, maybe some defense missions even, with a good placement of this, then it probably would pop up to a B. I will say, I kind of wish that the flame turret had a lower cooldown to it. I feel like that the flame turret is a lot like the machine gun turret, in that, you know, its effectiveness is, you know, is really like it's a short range, close range damage, right? But it's kind of missing out on the long range, right? And I kind of wish that you could throw it out more, because I think that you would get way more value out of the flame turret rather than it kind of have like the samey type of sentry cooldown. So if there was one buff that I could have for the flame turret, it would be a shorter cooldown. If it had a shorter cooldown to it, even on the Automaton faction, I would definitely put it like in a B tier situation. But for the time being, I'm going to definitely put it into a C tier. The Gatling sentry, I do find this one to be very, very good. But I'm actually going to put it in A tier. I don't think this is a bad turret at all, and there's probably some people who might argue that this is an S tier one, and in which case I can definitely see the reasons on why. But in my opinion, though, I just like the Autocannon more, and there's definitely going to be some more up here soon that I think that are better picks than the Gatling sentry. This thing can eat up devastators and patrols, right? I do find these to be very, very good, particularly against devastator patrols and devastator bot drops, right? However, if there's a Hulk in the mix, a tank, Strider, or whatever, it doesn't really do that great at that point, because now you're handling a heavily armored target. So in my opinion, that's kind of where it falls at. But against every other enemy in the game, though, this does really, really good work and is good, like more or less like crowd control. But you just do have to remember that if it blows up because of a turret or a tank or a Hulk or a Strider, that's the reason why, is because those things were in the mix whenever the bot drop happened. So that's why I'm putting it into the A tier slot. The HMG placement, this one's kind of a weird one for me. I do think that the tank one is probably better than this one. This one's better for CC control. I'm going to kind of put it at a high A leading into S position. I'm going to be conservative here and put it in A tier. By no means is it a bad one, right? By no means is it bad. I just like the anti-tank one more because I can handle Hulks, tanks, and Striders and turrets better. With this, you can still handle those enemies fairly well, right? With the Hulk, you can just beam them in the eye. With tanks, you kind of have to be a little bit more placement dependent, because you kind of want to throw this behind a tank, get into it, then shoot them from behind. You know, you may have to rotate a little bit more. This is fine against, you know, trying to like support your teammates, destroying like a fortress or like an automaton heavy emplacement or something like that. And it does fantastic crowd control, right? Anything that's like a Hulk and below, I think it is really, really good on, right? Where I think it falls at is that it's not bad against striders. It's just like you have to kind of aim well with it, and there is a big honking turret on top of the strider. And if you cause enough commotion to where that turret on top looks at you, you will die. Against just like turret emplacements on the automaton front, doesn't do particularly good against those as well, unless they don't notice you and unless you can throw it into a nice placement to where you can maybe get some value off of it and start beaming down those turrets. But if you're already engaged in a turret, if you try to throw this down and try to do it, you're wasting your time. You might as well just either completely disengage from the turret and wait to it and wait for the turret to calm down, lose aggro on you basically, or you just disengage completely and just move on to the next area. Support your teammates in another way, throw it at something else, and handle more enemies, right? But like for the most part, I could be swayed that this is S tier. I could be, but for the time being, I think that it's more of like high A, maybe S tier type of stratagem, like placement sentry type stratagem. Machine gun sentry, I don't think it's S tier, but I do think it's definitely on the higher side of A, just simply because you can throw these out nonstop. It's really good for CC control, not really good for hulks, tanks, turrets, right? But it's just good because the CC value that you get out of this for such a low cooldown, it's just baseline in my opinion, A tier, right? If they do any more buffs to this thing, it would go higher than that. But in my opinion, I think the machine gun sentry is right where it needs to be, because it's the first sentry that you unlock, or should be like one of the first sentries that you unlock, and it just has a nice feel to it now because of the low cooldown. You can just keep on throwing these things out, and you basically have like a little buddy with you. I kind of feel like this is a like a second like turret, I guess, or like a little flying, like little flying turrets, like the guard dogs, right? I feel like this is like a guard dog, but it just stays in one place because of how many times you can kind of just throw this out there, and it just provides a lot of support for you and for your team. And if it if it gets blown up, and however ways it gets blown up, it's no big deal. You can just throw another one out there. So that's why I'm putting it in A tier. The anti-personnel mines, I don't feel like these are bad. Again, like it's very super situational. Defense missions, I feel like it's really good on, but any other mission type, it's not really that great. They did buff the damage to it, and they buffed the spread of the mines being flown out so that the mines would not blow up on themselves, which I think is good. If I had one thing to change to this, though, I would change that it does need to do a little bit more damage, but I'm going to be a little bit charitable to this one. I'm actually going to put it in a B tier, but on the low end of B, I do wish that it did a little bit more damage. I've seen this thing kill hulks at times because the explosive splash can hit their backs, kind of like how it does for chargers. Takes about maybe 4 to 5 mines to do that. It's kind of, like I said, like I've only seen it happen once. But mainly this is going to be for devastators, berserkers, like the little skinny robots. Anything else that's bigger, it's not really going to do well on. But you make an area of denial that's just sitting there, but just know that your teammates are probably going to hate you because this thing kills teammates like crazy. So just be mindful of that, of like where you place it at. But for the most part, I feel like these mines are pretty good. Pretty good on defense missions. But for the most part, I do feel like these are one of the weaker mines in the game currently. But we'll kind of go over some of the other mines as well, and which ones I think is really strong right now. The mortars. It's just like the regular mortar. I do think that it's S tier. Just that the destructive power of this is really good. And the fact that you can just throw this behind cover and just let it do its thing is also really good. Just be mindful, though, this can kill your teammates, okay? This is a team-killing machine. But against every other enemy in the game, though, it does very, very good. It does okay against hulks. It can kill tanks. I've actually seen this thing kill tanks every now and then. But again, it just depends on where the mortar hits, right? and it doesn't do particularly well against striders. And turret emplacements. I don't even think they can even target turret emplacements. But for like just pure CC control, it does fantastic. But whenever you do throw it down, though, make sure that you throw it behind cover and that you kind of remain close to it until it's all gone, so that you're not running out into the middle of an area that the mortar is probably firing at and you get yourself and your teammates killed. So that's why I'm putting it in S tier. Super good on defense missions, by the way. A must pick on defense missions. It's kind of like the EMS mortar, in my opinion. The incendiary mines, again, I'm going to kind of be charitable to these. I think they're kind of like I think these are way better on squids and terminids. I don't think they're that great on automatons, but on defense missions, again, super good, because again, you're just trying to throw as much bull crap out on the field that can handle whatever's flying at you, right? So it's good against devastators, berserkers, anything that's like devastators below. Doesn't really do good against hulks, in my opinion, but what it does is that it just lays fire down, and fire actually is sort of effective against the automatons right now, so it does apply some sort of dot or damage over time to the enemy, and some sort of slowing process as well, because I believe fire also does slowing. But I'm going to put these in kind of like a average performance type of deal. Again, very situational, but they're still pretty good in defense missions. Not really good against 40-minute missions or blitz missions, but unless like there's like some situations. But for the most part, I do think that they're kind of, like they're decent. Rocket Sentry, I kind of wish these did like just a tiny bit more damage. I think they'd be really good at that point. Also, the targeting is kind of weird on these. So the targeting of the Rocket Sentry is supposed to aim for the biggest thing that's on the field and then start unloading on it, right? And sometimes it does it, and sometimes it does. And it's like, okay, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. When it does, it feels, it feels good. It feels very, very good. The times that it does it is whenever it's already locked onto something like a Devastator patrol, but there's a Hulk in the middle of it, but it's aiming for the Devastators and not the Hulk. So there's no like priority switch whenever it's already firing at something. It wants to kill the thing that it was already locked onto already, and then it switches to the next target. I wish that it has some sort of priority switch to it, or even just like a ping system where you could ping, and then the Rocket Sentry would then aim at that one thing that you're trying to, to aim at with. Sort of like how the mortars are, right? Which, by the way, the mortars do have that, and it's actually quite good. It kind of gives some sort of like control with the mortars, but anyways. But I also wish that it would do like just a tiny bit more damage, kind of give some competitiveness compared to like the Autocannon, because I'd rather just take the Autocannon compared to the Rocket Sentry. But the Rocket Sentry though it's not bad. It's not bad. In no means is it bad. I just think that there's like some glaring issues with it that I would like to see fixed in the future, but the overall performance is still an above average performance. The shield placement, I'm not gonna lie, I rarely use this. I rarely see people use this, and whenever I see people use this at times, right, its situational uses are very few and very far between, to the point where I just think that they just need to rework this completely. So I'm going to put this into a D tier. There might be people in the comment section who think that this is like really good. You guys can make that argument for me. Maybe I'm missing something with this, but in my opinion, every single time that I see someone use this, or even I use it at times, I picked up this thing maybe once or twice after the buff, right? In which case, I believe the buff was that it has more HP. It can regen more HP faster. It's a bigger bubble. And I think that's it. I don't think there's really any other buffs to it. And then once the bubble is down, I don't think it can recharge back up. I think that it's just out because of its fast regen. So the tankiness comes from the bubble. It's not like a large health pool. It's how fast it's able to maintain its bubble HP or whatever, right? I just wish that this was a little bit better. If you throw like a resupply in the center of the, well, not at the center of the bubble, but just kind of like inside the bubble, actually the hell pod can actually cause considerable damage to the bubble, in which case you're doing more harm than good at that point. And at that point, I'd rather just bring, if I'm getting that much of a bullet storm like in my direction, I'm just gonna be in cover, taking pot shots, or throwing down other sentries, like just in general, to kind of like take the heat off of me so that I can reposition, right? Like disengage, reposition, rotate, however you want to say it, right? But again, you guys let me know in the comment section what you think about the shield generator or the shield bubble placement stratagem, or like whatever it's called, because I don't see really any use in this too often, in my opinion. But you guys let me know what you think. The Tesla Tower, I can be swayed either way on whether or not this is S tier, because I've seen this thing do some really good work, but I'm going to be kind of conservative here. I think that it's an A tier. Like, I think it's really good. I think it's really good at just pure CC. It has actually decent health now. But here's the problem though. It doesn't do really good against tanks, not good against riders, and not good against turrets. But it does really good against anything that's a Hulk or below. So Hulks, Devastators, Berserkers, Rocket Devastators, Heavy Devastators, like the little itty bitty skinny robots, like all their variants, does very well against those. And the amount of stun that this thing is able to produce on Hulks is very good. The chain effect as well is also really good. You can get a shield module for this that extends that chain lightning as well. Just be careful standing near it because this thing can one-shot you. But overall, I do think that this is a very good placement, or like a very good turret in Helldivers 2. Definitely really good on Terminids. I feel like that's better on Tyranids though, because again, it requires things to be kind of up close. But this thing actually does very good damage up close, and the arc, it only needs one enemy to arc off of, and then it has the range that it needs to kind of like handle the job to other enemies. The gas mines. Okay, so the gas mines I do think are S tier, and the reason why that I say that is because one, they can't kill your teammates unless your teammates are already low already, right? And they're just kind of like a nice, like, sleeper. I don't know how to really explain this. Kind of like a sleeping orbital gas strike that you could just throw out. I would literally pepper the field with these, because again, like, you really don't die to gas mines. Like, you and your teammates, unless you're like very low health, you get ragdolled into them and you die to them, which is like a freak accident, right? Unless you're like very, very, very low health or doing something stupid, right? Then you die to these, right? So that's the first pro. The second pro is that it's gas. Gas applies damage over time, and it causes the enemies to go insane and shoot each other, and run around the field, and they lose aggro on you, right? It's a fantastic way to kind of like control the battlefield. Mines are supposed to be very good at controlling the battlefield. Where the enemies are not supposed to go, right? You can litter the entire battlefield to where anywhere that the enemy steps on is bad for them. It's very, very, very bad for them. And this is why I'm kind of putting them in S tier, is because one, they don't kill you, like I mentioned before, and two, you just do amazing CC, like so good CC. It is insane, the capabilities of these gas mines. These gas mines are dirty. They affect anything that's a Hulk and below, right? Which is most of the enemies that you'll be encountering in level 10 difficulties. So, like, I've been falling in love with these things. Whenever they're off cooldown, I just throw them. I don't care where I throw them, I just throw them, right? Of course, you kind of want to have some thought into them, but, and that might be like a little bit hyperbolic, but for the most part, you can kind of just throw these out there, and you'll be fine. you will be 100% fine. And that's why I really, really, really like these mines. These mines are very, very good. This is how mines should be, in my opinion. I kind of wish these were like up to the power of the gas mines, but also I think that has to do with just gas. Gas is just so retardedly OP in this game. They're so good right now. I remember when gas was not that great and it was just another damage over time thing. Now it's damage over time with the capability of just completely alleviating pressure off yourself, and the enemies that are affected can shoot other enemies because they don't know like who's an enemy, who's friend or foe, right? And I've seen where Hulks will shoot other Devastators, Rocket Devastators will then shoot Hulks. It's hilarious, right? And another thing as well, as I mentioned before, is that these are the mines that won't kill your teammates, which sounds dumb, and believe me, it is dumb. But it's good for your team because your team won't be mad at you if you bring these mines. Fantastic on defense missions, fantastic on 40-minute missions, fantastic on blitz missions. These mines are very, very good. Sometimes I actually just throw these at my feet and run off. Or sometimes I actually throw these on my feet, and if I'm wearing like the gas armor or anything like that, I'll be fine. If I'm running like experimental infused syringes, right? I'll just health tank through these mines. So run the gas mines. The gas mines are very, very good in Helldivers too. I think that they're probably one of the best stratagems definitely in the game currently. So this is my tier list. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. I would greatly love to hear your criticisms or just kind of like y'all's opinions on these type of stratagems in Helldivers too. Tell me where I'm right. Tell me where I'm wrong. And as always, like, share, and subscribe, and see you guys next time. Bye-bye.